Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Zeplin and Figma Better Together. And today I'm super excited to have ArcTouch here. And ArcTouch is comprised of multiple different locations all throughout the world. And to introduce a little bit more about that, we have Bárbara. So Bárbara, do you mind introducing yourself and a little bit more about what ArcTouch does?
Sure. I'm a product designer here at ArcTouch. I've been working here for the last year, and we're a software development company, and we help other companies to forge meaningful connections with their customers through lovable apps and digital experiences. Our main offices are based in San Francisco, US, and Florianopolis, Brazil, and we're also part of WPP Group. We have people all over the world. I'll let Ricardo talk a bit more about it.
Hey, I'm Ricardo. I'm a product designer. I work with Bárbara on a daily basis. And I live here in Florianopolis and I've been working at ArcTouch for more than 2 years now. So this is pretty much it for me.
Very cool. And can you tell us a little bit about your role and how you work with different teams? Because Bárbara mentioned you guys are pretty much worldwide, right? So how does that process look like?
Yeah, we have over 200 people working for us across we have two offices, but we have people that work remotely for us in Europe, in Brazil, and other countries of South America too. So our work is pretty decentralized, and now that we are working remotely, everybody is at their home. So we can spread our work very easily because we are used to it because we are not such a centralized company. And on the design team, we have 16 designers and counting because we are always growing a little bit. And we have diverse backgrounds and expertises in UX and UI design. So this is pretty much it about the teams.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing how the whole team works. Very cool. And moving on to Danielle now. Danielle, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at ArcTouch?
Yes, sure. I'm a product manager. I work side by side with Bárbara in one of the projects she works on. And I'm from São Paulo, but I live here in Florianopolis as well. I have been working at ArcTouch for the past year. And I am the product manager, so I try to keep everyone in the same page. I work together with the designers, QAs, tech leads, and engineer, and also talk to the client every day, gathering the feedbacks and try to align everyone in the same goal of having lovable apps.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about your workflow now. And Bárbara, let's go ahead and kick things off here. Can you tell us a little bit about how ArcTouch works across the whole globe?
Yeah, sure. Well, talking specifically about design, our work usually happens upfront or in parallel of development process. So we usually start with an idea or an input that comes from the client or from whatever we realize the project or the product needs. And we have this discovery and research phase, which is the phase where we designers work even more closely to the product managers. They really, take deep in this part with us. And after that, it comes the ideation part of the process, which is where we explore all the possible, ways to resolve our initial problem. And this is the moment where we take advantage of tools like Sketch or Figma, depending on the project or the client. But mostly, we prefer Figma to do that. And after that, after discussing with the team all the options we have, deciding what is the best approach to move forward with, we prepare screens, assets, and stuff, and upload everything on Zeplin, which is the platform that developers and QAs use to develop and test things. So, and then it happens the development and testing process. We have demos of the features we created, and this whole process may repeat as many times as needed, depending on the project or the feedbacks we receive.
Cool, cool. So you talked a little bit about your clients and your projects here. Can you clarify a little bit? Is it more project dependent or client dependent on which tools that you use?
Uh, that that depends, like the design team from ArcTouch, we have our preferences. Like I said, we have been using Figma and Zeplin together. This is our preferences. This is what we believe works better.
Mm-hmm.
But if the client, we have this project with 3M, for example, that we have designers from their side working along with us. So their team was already used to work with Sketch, and they have it really, strong. That's what makes sense for them. We have no problems to adjust our process to incorporate what makes more sense for the client and what makes the client's life easier.
All right, so we just went over your workflow. Now I'm super curious about some of the problems you're facing. Barbara, we talked a little bit about your experience at 3M. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Well, on the 3M project, we have this huge multidisciplinary team working on it. We have many QAs, developers, designers, product managers, project managers working from our side. We also have designers from 3M side that collaborate with us in all the work. We have copywriters, product people, many stakeholders from 3M. And so there was just, so many people with so many different backgrounds. And we have to figure out the best way to organize everything in a way that everyone could find whatever they needed without having to be like walked through their organization. And we have to like name screens in a way that would be useful for QAs to incorporate that on their test cycles. And and especially on this 3M project, we didn't design screens on Figma. We had to use Sketch for that because it was a client preference. So we couldn't even count on the real-time collaboration that Figma has. The biggest challenge was to find a way to do all that using Zeplin's features.
Gotcha, gotcha. So it seems like that not only did you have to work with your own team, your own different designers and developers and your whole product suite, but you also had to work with 3M side. On top of that, you couldn't use Figma, and there goes the real-time collaboration, right? So then can
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit about how difficult it was to have other disciplines get involved?
Well, I guess the hardest part was that, the everything kind of didn't require like a proper explanation to make sense for other person. So the way we would name things, name the screens, name the sections, the tags, would have to make sense for everyone. So this was the main challenge, I guess, making sure that everyone was on the same page.
Gotcha, gotcha. And I know Danielle worked with 3M as well. Danielle, can you tell us a little bit more about your experience?
Yes, sure. So as Barbara mentioned, that's a big team, and we get feedbacks from everyone along the process, and we iterate on that very much. Like we have a lot of times that we go back to the same feature, the same screen, and we improve that after we get a feedback from the client, or even a feedback that we get while testing the feature, or from the analytics that we have on that. So we have a lot of versions, and we can have a production version of the app and also have a QA version, and the QA team needs to test both constantly in our workflow. So once we have a feedback, we would create another ticket to work on that feedback. And once the production version has a version of that feature, we are improving that same feature, and we have a new version of that in a different way. So it was really hard for the QA team to really know, like, on this version of the app, we have the screen like that, and now we improved in a different way, and why we improved that. So keep that story there, like that history line was really challenge for us.
I see. I see. So can you kind of approximate what the average versions that you would have in a particular project?
Yeah, so that really depends, but it's a lot. So we have a lot of app versions going on the same time. So we have a production version for the iOS app. We also have a production version for Android. But as you know, many people don't update their apps on the stores. So many users can have different versions of the same product production app that we have. And also each ticket that we create on Jira and that we work on creates a new version, a new QA version that the QA team will test. So all that comes together at the end to have a new release to production. But in one day, maybe a QA engineer will test more than 10 versions. So that's really hard to keep on. And that version of the app can have different versions of the same screen. So that's challenging.
Gotcha. So it seems that you need a version history to
Yeah.
have your team to have the ability to go backtrack on certain items and also test stuff in parallel if need be. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So the team needs to know the history there and why things changed, and so what come up for us to decide to change that, and also to be able to see exactly how that screen looked like some time ago.
Okay, awesome, awesome. And now we're switching over to Ricardo here. We talked about your version history, and without having multidisciplinary collaboration is difficult as well. Ricardo, can you tell us a little bit about kind of your experience with some of the challenges you were facing?
Sure. Last year, I started to work on a project for a company called DIS. They offer management systems for dealerships that work with heavy equipment for agriculture, construction, and other industries. Basically, we are working on logistics apps. And the main challenge we've had was working in a project with a team that's spread across the world. So we have our team here in Brazil. We have a developer on our side that lives in Belarus. And the client has a development team that's working with us in Pakistan. And the client is from the USA. So we have people all across the globe in different time zones. And this specific project is designed to work on multiple platforms. So it has to work on Android, iOS, both for tablets and phones, and also a Windows version. So organization is crucial to make it happen in all these different platforms and different viewports. So having a single source of truth while we design for such different use cases is essential to avoid mistakes and to keep the work consistent. So Figma works for us as a playground for the designers, but we need a place to have that single source of truth. So all of these teams that are working together have a place to find the latest and more stable version of what they have to develop.
I see. So it seems like that you need a single source of truth to know what the final designs are, right? And to tell your team, your wider team, hey, this is the final version. And if there needs to be an update, it'll get updated automatically. Because you talked about the client was in America, something I think another team was in Pakistan, you're in Brazil. So it's all over the world, right? And without having that, there was no kind of standard. There was nothing to keep the team aligned, right?
Yeah, and that's the big challenge. We have different tools for communication. We use Microsoft Teams to talk to the client side, and we have used Slack to talk internally with ArcTouch, with the ArcTouch team, and we use email as well. So imagine if we had to send emails using Google Drive or something else to send emails across the world. So it's everything we need to have an online tool that is the source for all of these people. So the QAs can access it, developers can access it, I can access it, and even a new designer on the team or the product managers and everything. So it makes it easier for all of us because everything is online and everything is updated. That's the final version. We don't have to send files to know.
Definitely. And it is, and you just kind of recapped what Barbara was kind of having issues with in terms of bringing different disciplines together into one place. And also what Danielle mentioned in terms of version history as well, to work efficiently and also in parallel. And now you're speaking about, not having a source of truth, which is a huge problem to keep things aligned. Is that
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, we need consistency, especially if we are talking about big projects. The first release of this mobile app, for example, it has almost 80 screens and just for mobile, and the full version for tablet has more than 100. So it's a lot of screens and it's a lot of different variations, a lot of states of the same components, and we have to get a source of truth.
Okay, so we just went over some of the challenges you folks were facing with 3M and DIS. Now let's talk about some of the solutions with Figma and Zeplin. Barbara, do you want to start off first?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that really helped us a lot on the 3M side was to create a very structured way to organize those screens using the sections and tags from Zeppelin. So we kind of created sections separating things by major flows or parts of the apps, complex sections, things like that. And we use the tags as a way of filter things by the details of what is inside of each section. Like, so we could have a section for what is the change Wi-Fi flow, for example, and we could filter things by the tags of what is the design for an iPhone 11 or what is the design for an iPhone SE or, whatever filter of details was required. And this really, it really improved the findability of things for everyone in the team because we decided the sections and the tags in a team discussion to make sure it would make sense for everyone. And the other thing that really helped us was concentrating all the feedbacks using the comment feature of Zeppelin. So it was very easier for a QA or a developer or a copywriter or a stakeholder to go straight to the screen they have a question about or have a suggestion of what we could do and add a comment there. So it was easier for me. I believe it was easier for Danielle as the product manager. So those were two things that really helped us.
Awesome, awesome. So it seems like before we go into comments, it seems like section tags really helped you organize everything and it helped people find stuff a lot easier, whether they be a designer or a developer or a QA or any discipline, right? Now, question for you.
Exactly.
Okay, question for you. Who makes those sections and tags? Is there one single person that organizes everything? Is it a team effort? What's that process looking like?
Well, we created the sections and the tags. I guess it was more like we, the designers and the product managers, we were the responsible by properly the starting the organization. But in a continuity of the work, every time I upload a new screen on Zeppelin, the first thing I do in the sequence is to move it to a section and add tags to it. It's like, upload things on Zeppelin and already organize to the proper sections and tags. We don't wait too much to do that later. It's part of our workflow already.
That's so good to hear that you have a best practice already implemented. And for section tags. And speaking of best practices, what's the, I guess, workflow looking like for commenting? Is there like, do you organize that by colors or, how do the colors mean something? How do you organize those comments to get the most out of them?
We don't use colors to organize comments, but I like that idea. We should definitely try that. But usually we keep the comment thread open while we're still solving whatever is being discussed. And the best practice we have decided is to, close the thread as soon as we're done with whatever is going on, because it helps us to understand, like what still needs someone's attention on, or what's already solved. But I really like the color idea. We should try that.
Yeah, I spoke to a lot of teams and they use colors to signify different stuff. So like red might be bugs,
Mm-hmm.
green might be good to go, and it goes so forth and so forth, right? But whatever works best for your
Mm-hmm.
team is the best way to use those notes and colors, right? So that's really, really good to hear.
Sure.
In terms of notes, I have one more question. Can anyone go in there and write a note? Or is it only limited to the designer, developer, PMs, or can anyone from the exec level all the way down to maybe a copywriter, can they all use notes?
Yeah, like anyone that have access to the Zeplin project can add a note, as long as you tag the person who you want to direct your question to.
Mhm.
So you can do that.
Awesome, awesome. And how did the 3M team feel after this was all implemented? Did they find it a lot easier to collaborate? Did they find, I'm assuming it was a lot easier
Yeah.
to find stuff. Can you tell us a little bit more about
Mm-hmm.
that experience after Figma and Zeppelin was implemented?
Well, I guess, you just made everyone's life easier, because everyone knew after we started doing that where was the right place to share feedback or ask a question, and make sure your question would be seen and not, forgotten in the middle of the way. So I'm pretty sure it helped them a lot, because it was easier for the stakeholders to go there and share feedback. It was easier for the copywriters to show exactly where the final copy should be at. So it really made everyone's life easier, made the process flow so much better.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. And speaking of making life easier over at 3M and ArcTouch, Danielle, can you talk a little bit more about your experience with implementing version history?
Yes, sure. So the first complaint came to us by a QA that was like kind of lost on all of those versions. So me, Bárbara, and the other product manager, we sit together to talk about that, like how can we fix that? So we realized that Zeppelin had the whole version history there, and also that we could add comments to it. And but most importantly, especially for me, is that I could get this the exactly link for that version to put in those tickets on Jira. So that helped a lot. So once we get a feedback from anyone on the team, the stakeholders, we would improve that screen, and Bárbara would update a new version on Zeppelin, adding a commit comment to that version, explaining a little bit why we made that decision, what exactly changed it. So what's really easy for us to see the whole history there on Zeppelin and understand how the process went to all of those changes. And also, once I create a ticket, I add the exact link for that version. So once the team opens that link, it opens the exactly screen. So that made our life much easier, because before we would use the common link for like the latest version. So the team would get confused. Like I'm testing here, but it doesn't look correctly as I have on the app. So what happened there? So I would get a lot of questions from the team, like, Danielle, what changed here? It seems that's not correctly. So using the link helped a lot.
Awesome. So it seems like that you use Zeppelin to easily generate specific links and you attach that to a Jira ticket, and it makes that whole process a lot easier. In terms of version history, what's so important about going back through, a few versions? Like what's so important about that?
Yeah. So one example that it is good to have that is if we have a bug on production, for example, and we need to understand like what that screen should be like, that it's not matching, for example, we go through the version and we just get the exactly link for the date. So we can see also the timeline there. And we understand, no, like this is not a bug. It should be like that. Because sometimes as we get a lot of feedbacks, we kind of forget like where this come from. So having the version and also the comments there, we can understand and be more efficient on the process.
That's very cool. So it seems like the version history keeps you folks from, evaluating any new bugs that might arise. And you can always backtrack to see an earlier version to see if that bug was there or not, and to kind of troubleshoot where it kind of went wrong and to come up with a solution very, very quickly, right? Now,
Yeah.
one question I had was like, who looks over the version history? Is it only the developer? Is it only the designer? What different disciplines look at the version history?
Oh, so I believe all the team looks at that. So, but especially the QA team, because they are the ones alongside with me as a product manager that needs to have this whole vision of everything. So, if a QA team, a QA engineer is testing a feature, they really need to know how that screen needs to look like in the app. And also for me, if someone asked me like, why this changed, I will go through the version and really know what happened there, because sometimes we get some feedbacks and we add that to the comments. So that was improved because we got a feedback from someone, or because we learned something from the tests or from the analytics, so we can understand better how the product evolves from that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That is really, really amazing how you used version history and basically multidisciplinary collaboration to get everyone involved over at 3M and ArcTouch. So very cool. Moving on to Ricardo and DIS. Ricardo, can you tell us a little bit more about how DIS use Figma and Zeplin for the source of truth?
Sure. Yeah, we started to work with this team from Pakistan, and for us it was pretty natural and pretty easy to use Figma and Zeplin, because this is what we've been using for a few months and years. But I found out that that team has never worked with Zeplin before, and I didn't know that. So we started the development, and me and the QA analyst started seeing that they were having a lot of problems getting the right sizes and spacing between screen elements and everything. So one day I've asked them if they were having trouble finding the specs on Zeppelin. And then I found out that they didn't know how to use it. They had the links for it, but they didn't know. I've even asked them how they used to work with designers before that, and they said that they would generally receive the designs as a static image with the specs separately sometimes. So it was pretty different than what we are used to do. So I set up a Zeppelin workshop with them. So brought all the team together and went through everything to explain all the features. So I presented to them how the specs appear, how all the components on the screens are also on the style guides, how to use the pop-out feature to compare the designs to what they're doing. And after that, the speed of the process increased a lot, and also the quality of the work. So they know where the things are, and they know how to get all the specs and the assets that they need to do their work. So we also share the prototypes from Figma, so they can see the interactions and transitions, all the things that we did there, but not the working files, so that we can concentrate all of that on Zeppelin. The project is still in progress, and I'm very happy with the results so far, because now we can see the parts being built exactly as we designed, because we have a single source and they know how to use it and make a good use of that for what they need.
Wow. So before, DIS was using static images and probably like PDFs to go back and forth between the designer and developer. Sometimes the specs would be missing or misplaced, and they didn't know what the final design was. And you kind of did a Zeppelin workshop with them and kind of brought them up to speed and how you can make beautiful products more efficiently and collaborate better. Now, question for you is how easy was it was for the team at DIS to get ramped up with Zeppelin for a team that's never used it before?
No, it was surprisingly quite easy because it was very quick for them to, okay, I got it. I didn't know how to do this. I didn't know where to find this, but now I understand that the specs are here and I can go and see the style guides and see everything there. So it was pretty quick, and they were making a lot of questions to me in the beginning. We were using Microsoft Teams as I mentioned before. But now uh, they don't even need me anymore. They can keep up with their work, and it's been great. They are building a lot of cool things over there.
All right, thank you so much for telling us your story about working with DIS and 3M here. Now, I'm super excited to hear what is next for you folks. So Bárbara, why don't you kick us off and tell us what you're most excited about?
Well, on the 3M project, we have already been using the style guide section of Zeplin to upload all the components and styles and colors that are part of our design system. But I believe there is still plenty of room to improve the way we have been documenting things. Like we don't make use of, for example, kinetic components, which would be very useful for the dev team, I believe. And we don't have all the sections properly set within the style guide tab. So I want to take more time to explore how we can make better documentation of our design system on the style guide tab.
Great, yeah, connected components are super cool because they connect your components to production code. Now, question for you, Bárbara, is are you gonna have a developer come in and help you out, or are you gonna take a stab at it yourself?
No, I'll definitely have a developer helping me. I'm cool as a designer. That's fine. I'll have a developer's help.
Well, that's how you get collaboration better, right? But yeah, the style guides are really, really cool. They really, foster reusable components, and that's the paramount of being efficient, right? Anything that could be reusable, you should definitely reuse. So thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. Next up, we have Danielle. Danielle, can you tell us what you're most excited about next?
So as a product manager, I'm trying to make our product life cycle short as we possible can, and getting the best solutions in the user's hand as fast as we can. So to do that, I see two ways that we could improve our workflow. First of them was to get everyone Figma's access, so we could do real-time collaborations and get the feedbacks from the team earlier in the process. And also, if we could do more testing with prototypes using Figma as well. We already do that, but I would like to see more testing being done so we could get better feedbacks from real users and improve our designers and overflows in the app so we could have better solutions.
Cool, awesome. And you talk about giving access to Figma to your team. Are you talking about your wider team? Who are you trying to give access to?
So currently we do this collaboration over Zeplin with the QAs and engineers, so they only have access to that, and they will give us comments there when they have feedbacks. But if we can get them on Figma, while Bárbara is still ideating the features, creating the first screen, we could get their feedbacks early in the process. So that could be really good for us.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, getting feedback early and often is that old saying here. It's measure twice, cut once. So the more feedback you get earlier on, you get a more beautiful, efficient product faster, right? So thank you so much for sharing that. And last but not least, we have Ricardo here. Ricardo, what are you most excited about?
I want to start working with variants on Zeppelin because I've been working with them on Figma since they roll out a few months ago, and it's pretty useful for the kind of work we are doing with a lot of different components, with a lot of different screens and screen sizes and everything. So it's pretty cool to have those variants. And I saw that Zeppelin implemented this recently, but I haven't worked with it yet. So I'm pretty excited about it and just pretty excited to see how is it going to help us in the development team.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see you implement component variants because I think it will definitely put your team to the next level there. Speaking of new features, though, I'm curious, Ricardo, on how you folks kind of vet new features. So is it a few people in your organization that checks out new features? Is it the whole team? How does that process work on figuring out new things out there?
Mhm. Yeah, in every team, we always have the early adopters that want to test everything that comes out. But I'm in the second group. I wait a little. I wait a second to see how it works and see how they're doing with it to adopt it later. So uh, I'm not the first one, but I'm definitely the second. We have a culture of sharing a lot. So we have design meetings every week. So everybody talks about how they are using the features and the different softwares that we use. So we can always learn with each other and try to improve the way we work.
And there's nothing wrong being a second adopter. I mean, that's what made Apple so great. So you're all the process of refining things and making things more efficient. So thank you for sharing that, Ricardo. And thank you to all you folks as well, Danielle and Bárbara, for joining me today on our second episode of Figma and Zeppelin Better Together. And we will see you on the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.